Welcome to our weekly program, The Inside Story of Chabad in America through the Mindel Archives. This week, I want to mention here, I got some emails from Shluchim. And since we have the English letters, I would say most of the Rebbe English, thousands of letters, and there's answers for everything. So they asked me a few questions, different shluchim. One question was, is there any letter of the Rebbe? They have Seder Pesach, and they have groups, they have an adult education class, and should we invite everybody, anybody that calls? They have classes, they have, I think, one guy says he has about 12 people. So anybody that calls, or they should, or he said he should ask, are you Jewish? Or you're not Jewish? Or maybe they shouldn't ask. And maybe they're missionaries. I mean, can anybody just come to the Seder? Can anybody just come without any Yid? Is that what it is? Is there anything from the Rebbe, an answer for that? That was question number one. Another person asked over here, he says, when we're Mekarev people, we bring them closer to Yiddishkeit, and they become religious, they become frum, and they live in a Goyish neighborhood area. Should we tell them to move to a more Yiddish area, like Crown Heights, or Borough Park, or in Chicago, or the base in Cleveland, in a Jewish area, or they should continue living? We, the Shliach says here, we are Shluchim of the Rebbe, so we have Koiches of the Mishaleach, but they don't. They just became from. Should we tell them to move or start a community with them? This was a question that they asked. So I just want to tell you the questions. Another question was, when we have the group, when we farbring, with the should we have wine? Should we serve wine there? Because there's a problem with wine. Should be mixed sitting. And one person asked me here that they have a couple that's going to Rome for a vacation. Can he go and visit? He wants to see the Vatican. Can he visit the Pope? It's a question. So they want to know, does the Rebbe, the Rebbe answers everything. Is there a letter about visiting the Pope? Then there is a question about putting a stone into the Kaisel. Can a person, when he goes to the Kaisel Amaravi, to the western wall, should he put a stone? These are a few questions I had. So I'm going to touch, I found the letters, yes, and I'm going to read letters, some of them, answers of the Rebbe. I will start with the last one. Can you put a stone, a carved stone, into the western wall? Here's what the Rebbe says. In reply to your writing about your desire to place a small carved stone into the western wall, my view is as follows. No doubt you know that each and every word and letter in the Torah is significant. Every letter. Even in an ordinary book written by a human author is significant. Every word. One would not expect repetition, even in a book. How much more so in the divine Torah? Yet, although words are used in the Torah sparingly, we find certain matters repeated which obviously indicate their special importance. But we do find in the Torah, even though every word is important, that the Torah repeats. L'moshel, the Rebbe doesn't mention here, l'moshel, the Shidduch, that Avraham Avinu sent Eliezer to find a girl for Yitzchak, the Torah repeats. Yaakov Avinu sent the brothers to Mitzrayim, and then they came back, it repeats. The Mishkan, Truman to Tzaveh, it speaks about the Mishkan, speaks about the clothes of the Kohen, and then in Vayagel Pkudi again, so the Torah does repeat. Now the Rebbe says another thing that the Torah repeats, and from here we learn out what is that? So the Rebbe says like this. But before I want to say, it says, Yoivat Shloimei, V'elef Kamaisei, V'al Yoivat Ois Achaz B'Teira. That Shloimei get lost, Shloimei HaMelech, the smartest person in the world, and 1,000 like Shloimei HaMelech, but not one letter in the person is extra, or should be lost, or should be erased or something. And it doesn't matter what letter in the Torah, whether it's the Yud of Hashem, or whether it's the Ayin of Esau, or the base of Bilam, or Balak, it doesn't matter. Now the Rebbe says like this. One such matter is the injunction neither to add nor detract from the words and commandments of the Torah. This is repeated twice. The Torah says twice. Loi soisifu, don't add anything to the Torah. Veloi sigru, and don't detract anything to the Torah. Twice. The Torah repeats. Also significant is the order, namely, do not add and not detract. First it says, don't add, and then it says, don't detract. Why? Why is that? It should have been the opposite. Should have been, don't detract. I mean, when the Torah, the person's not going to take off, but maybe he'll love the Torah so much, maybe he's going to add. But Loi Sigru, for sure not. Nevertheless, the Torah mentions Loi Sosifa first, and then Loi Sigru. For the first glance, the transgression would seem much more serious if it involved a detraction rather than addition. And logically, the order in the said admonition should have been reversed. Consequently, our commentaries explain this as follows. There is a smaller chance for anyone who knows and appreciates holiness to detract from anything holy. It's a smaller chance. He's not going to detract. On the other hand, because of strong feeling for holiness, a person may wish to add something to it. Maybe he'll add. So if the question is being asked, what is wrong with that? What's wrong with adding? Detracting. Okay, but what's wrong with adding to the Torah? The same commentaries explain, the Rebbe says, that everything is divine origin, is every aspect and must not be tampered with, not only in a way that would diminish it, but also in a way that would add to it, since it would take out of the specific divine dimension. To use a simple illustration, it will be like a gilding the lily. You take a beautiful flower, beautiful. That itself is beautiful. And then you're going to put gold around the flower. Does that make sense? You're going to make it more nicer? It's beautiful by itself. You can't make it, you're going to make it nicer. That's one of the things that I heard once, why Chabad does not have a sukkah. No, we have schach, but we don't decorate the sukkah, because the sukkah itself is beautiful. The schach itself is beautiful. You don't have to put inside beautiful things. In effort to make it look even more beautiful than God created it. And because a person may be moved by his natural desire to do what? To add, the injunction not to do comes first. So from the above, my position, this is the answer about the carved stone in the Koisel. My position in the specific question which you raised will become obvious. The wall has a sanctity of its own, which has been preserved for thousands of years, serving as the most sacred place for Jews to pray there. Consequently, it is quite understandable that it must not be diminished in any way. By the same token, however, and out of the same sense of piety and appreciation of the holy, nothing should be added to it. An artist, the Rabbi says, who is usually particularly sensitive, will easily appreciate the above. I'm sure there is no need to elaborate further, and the Rebbe signs this letter. So now we know the answer, whether you can put a carved stone or not. Now I want to say another thing over here. There is, I heard a word, and I saw it in one of the notes of Rabbi Mindel, that when Yitzchak blessed Esav, and Yitzchak and Esav came back with the food after Yitzchak gave a bracha to Yaakov, and he wanted the blessing, so Yitzchak blessed him, and he said, V'hoya kasher torid ufaraktoi uloi me'altzav arecho. He told Esav, meaning when the Yidden would take off the yoke, would take off the mitzvahs, when they won't do the mitzvahs, then you take off the sword, you use your sword on the Yidden. So there was a note there, V'hoya kasher torid. Torid is taryad. Tov reish yud daled. Yidden have tayag mitzvahs, 613. Torid is 614. When a person will want to add to Torah, kasher torid, when you start adding, then then it's no good. So the Torah mentions twice, lo sasifu, don't add and don't detract, and that goes also on the stone. Now, I'm going to we have a minute, 2 minutes, I'm going to read another letter. I have no time for the other answers, that I'll do another time. But one thing I will do is about the Pope. Can a person visit the Pope? And the Rebbe answers. The Rebbe says like this, with reference to your cousin, about whom you write to in your letter, it is clear that her being in a place where there are few Jews, while on the other hand there are Gentiles who are busy exercising their influence to gain converts, it is a most undesirable situation for every one of us, and even tzaddikim say every morning in prayer, put us not to test meaning, according to this, that a person should live. We had a question before that one of the shluchim, should they live in a Jewish area? First of all, I think the Rambam says, we say in Pirkei Avos that a person should live in a Jewish area, in a from place. So, especially over here, she's asking about living in a place where there's goyim and they're trying to convert. The Rebbe says that's not a place to live. Now let's go back. Now let's go about the Pope. I must say, the Rebbe says, that I was greatly surprised that she writes to you about the benevolence of the Gentiles in her environment. Does she not know of the terrible tragedy of the millions of Jews who were savagely put to death by the Germans and the courts, while the rest of the world, the Gentiles, looked on with complete indifference? Even the last Pope, who could have saved many Jews by mere oral intervention, refused to do so. It is well known fact that when the Germans occupied Rome and the Jews were interned in concentration camps, the German commander hesitated to harm them, having been told that it would arouse the displeasure of the Vatican. they didn't harm them because they thought that the Vatican, the Pope, wouldn't like it. However, the Rebbe says, they were wrong. Checking personally with the Vatican whether this was so, the Pope refused to confirm it, knowing full well what the denial would mean for those thousands of unfortunate Jews. And although he had been pleaded with to say just one good word on their behalf, as a direct result, thousands of Italian Jews were deported to the extermination camps. This is all the more noteworthy since the Pope knew well that his attitude would not remain a secret. And yet, he could not find it in his heart to say a good word about the Jews. Despite efforts to misrepresent the facts, the evidence is irrefutable, as it was given by the very person who attempted to obtain the Pope's intervention in behalf of the Jews. That a Jewish girl should be oblivious of this and fall under the influence of the Gentiles' environment is beyond comprehension. This is the Rebbe's answer as far as the Pope. So the people that wanted to know the answer, this is the answer, we shouldn't go. Now, before I finish, I wanted to say one thing. There is another letter. The Rebbe was very, 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 and was emotional, upset that a frum Yid, even a Chassid, years ago, went to the Pope. And he went to the Pope and he sat next to the Pope. And they sang together. I don't know if he ate, he probably didn't eat, it's not kosher. But they sang. And this person wrote, he didn't say anything wrong with it. And the Rebbe answered a very, very, very sharp letter. The Rebbe never wanted to answer this person again when he wrote. So we see how important this is. When you go visiting to Rome, you should not go to the Pope. And also we see from here that a person should live in a Jewish environment. In Mitzvah Shem, next week we'll continue our weekly program. Thank you.